Good afternoon, Chamber members. It's Drew Camp back for week 2 of the video version of the weekly legislative update. Today's February 9th of 2018, and we're 1 week away from the first legislative funnel on February 16th. This week I want to cover just a few issues. I want to once again talk about the Deappropriations bill that the Senate and the House are looking at for the current fiscal year. I also want to talk about the Future Ready Iowa bill that has been passed through subcommittees in the House and the Senate. I want to talk about water quality, the tax increment financing bill, and then some education bills with the Save School Infrastructure penny, and then also the supplemental state aid for school growth for the school districts throughout the state. Jumping right into it, last week we were still waiting on the House to put out their Deappropriations numbers. They did just that on Wednesday this week when they put out a bill that would decrease funding for the current fiscal year by $33.8 million. This was almost $20 million less than what the Senate had proposed, so we were happy to see that because it had much smaller cuts to things like the Regent universities, community colleges, and also the Economic Development Authority. But what was very concerning about the bill is rather than the $7 million transfers from each the Iowa Skilled Worker and Job Creation Fund and the High Quality Jobs Fund for the Economic Development Authority, there's now $10 million in fund transfers being proposed for both funds, which is hugely concerning for us in the economic development world. I'll touch on that a little bit later. The Senate then took the House recommendations of the $10 million cuts to both of those funds and increased it from 7 to 10 in their proposal, and now both chambers have proposed $10 million fund transfers from the Iowa Skilled Worker and Job Training Fund and the High Quality Jobs Fund for the Deappropriations of the current fiscal year ending in June 30th. Why that's so concerning is that's $20 million of a $31.9 million bill is 63% of those cuts from two funds that we hold very dear to us and we get a lot of assistance and benefit from. And then in the House, it would be 60% because it's 20 million of 33.8. What's the most concerning thing though is that with 6 months left in the existing fiscal year, we would be zeroed out on direct financial assistance for economic development projects through the High Quality Jobs program. This is hugely concerning because if you think about projects like Workiva, REG, Barilla, Barringer, Ingelheim, any project that receives state assistance, they all received a portion of direct financial assistance as part of High Quality Jobs. What these cuts would do is they would zero that out, and it would be very concerning to not have that at our disposal going forward for the rest of the fiscal year ending on June 30th. There is some good news out of the Deappropriations though, is they did come to an agreement that they would have less cuts for IADA administration, also the Regents, Iowa State, Iowa, and University of Northern Iowa, and the community college. But the decrease in fund transfers from those two funds is very concerning and something we will continue to voice our opinion and our concerns on going forward. On a more positive note, the Future Ready Iowa study bills in both the House and the Senate passed out of subcommittee this week on Thursday, and there's been quite a bit of positive momentum around this bill, and it's really one of the most positive things happening down in the legislature as they push forward on their workforce development needs on the governor's Future Ready Iowa bill. With regards to water quality, though that was the first bill the governor signed into law last week, there's actually been some modifications proposed this week that we are very much in favor of to add on to the bill that was signed into law by Governor Reynolds last week. The biggest one and the one that we're most in favor of and that I spoke to at the subcommittee was the fact that industry is added. So industrial partners that are included in the Iowa Nutrient Reduction Strategy will also be able to receive assistance for their water quality needs, as those are large capital intensive projects. It's important that they too are included just as they are in the Iowa Nutrient Reduction Strategy. With regards to tax increment financing, nothing happened this week on the bill. It's through funnel next week because it's a tax bill, so it's alive the entire session, so we'll continue to monitor it, but nothing new to report on that this week. With regards to the Save School Infrastructure sales tax penny extension to 2050, that bill had a subcommittee this week on Wednesday, and we'll have another one again on Monday. We are in support of the bill because it will not only extend the save penny for school infrastructure projects like the high school and the pool, it will also equalize school transportation funding, which is hugely important as we continue to see some school districts serving wider and wider areas, and then their transportation needs to get their students to their respective schools. With regards to supplemental state aid or growth for the school districts throughout the state, the House has approved a 1% or $32 million increase in supplemental state aid for FY 2019, and the Senate has agreed with the 1% increase, but they also amended the House bill of $32 million and added on an additional $14 million, which would address inequities in schools between districts, just in basic enrollment and basic expenses, as well as inequities in school transportation funding. So as you can see, there's a little bit of potential conflict here between the House and the Senate, because both of them are looking at going about a different way on handling some of these things, whether it be the supplemental state aid or the school infrastructure extension and dealing with transportation costs. So that's going to be something we'll continue to watch going into next week, because it's hugely important for one of our critical partners, the Ames Community School District, and the other 6 community school districts throughout the county. So we'll continue to monitor that closely. Next week is the first legislative funnel on Friday, February 16th, and what that means is House bills have to be reported out of House committees to stay alive, and Senate bills have to be reported out of Senate committees to stay alive. The one we're watching most closely to make sure it gets through and stays alive for the remainder of the session until the next funnel in March is the Future Ready Iowa bill. It's something that has a lot of momentum around it. We expect it to make it through the first funnel next week, but it's definitely something we want to monitor and make sure that that does in fact happen. Finally, there are a couple bills that we would like to not see make it through the legislative funnel next Friday. Those include the bathrooms bill, similar to the one in Indiana and North Carolina that I addressed last week, but also a religious freedom bill. Both of those are very much not fostering or are not kind to diversity and inclusion, and those are bills that we've registered against. Due to that, we have a very strong inclusivity and diversity belief and statement here at the Ames Chamber of Commerce, and these bills go exactly to the opposite of that. And I look forward to going down on Monday and actually talking against the religious freedom bill for that exact reason. As I said, it will be funnel week next week, so it will be very, very busy. So please come back and watch again next week, because it's sure to be a lively update as we look at what has happened in a funnel week, which is always lively and exciting. Thank you very much, and have a great weekend.